All right, good morning, everybody. It is October the 26th, 2024. It's a Saturday, 8:30 in the morning. Out here with Mr. Felix Fuentes. We got, what was your name again, buddy? Victor, right? Deckhanded for us here. We got Mr. Jeff Chavez and Heather Allison. We're about time of scuba school out here today doing a little staff trip. We are out here off South Padre. Land is out that way, some way, little ways. We're about 17 miles offshore. You see some jack-up rigs out here in the distance. Depth here is about 130. We are on the Texas Clipper. It's a shipwreck down here. We're kind of prepping up. We're getting ready to put lines down, get moored up, and do a dive on the Clipper here. We'll see how this goes underwater, but we'll see you guys shortly. All right, getting right into the dive here. We've rolled over the side. Me, Jeff here, and Heather getting ready to head down and get started. There's already moon jellies on the surface here. We don't see those at depth, but quite a few on the surface. We start heading down the line here. I am going to lead out. Viz on the line here is not super great. It's maybe 15 foot headed down here. I can see up a little bit better than I can see down, but it's about 15, 20 foot viz. The captain's already gone down here and secured this to the boat, so we're just following it down where he has it attached to the wreck already. Of course, the spades are here to meet us on the way down, like always. And we're tied pretty close to midships here. This is just aft of midships. Just aft of the middle of the ship here. There's a big tear in the ship. You can see this big tear here. I assume this happened when they sank this thing back in 2007. There were mooring buoys on this thing, chains with buoys you could just pull up and tie to. Those have since broke off. There's no mooring buoys, so you literally have to swim down to the bottom and hook up to the wreck in this fashion, or use some kind of finder rig like a hook to hook it or something like that. But so anyway, we're in the water here starting our dive. See some reef butterflies right there on the right off the bat. I'm telling him we're gonna kind of drop down into this crevice, kind of come right back up. We are not going to go inside the wreck where we don't have direct access to come directly right back out here. This is not a penetration dive. We're just kind of going into the crack to kind of look around inside the compartment here. Spade, of course, a nice gray snapper here. This is dive 1. I did bring the spear gun with me on. We did 3 dives on this trip. This is dive 1. The plan was not to shoot fish on dive 1. My business partner Jeff, who's one of the trio in the group at the moment, has never dived this wreck, so I kind of want him to be able to see the entire wreck. If I start shooting fish, I probably won't travel very far, and he'll just watch me shoot fish the whole time. So dive 1, I'm trying to resist the urge to shoot something unless something like an African pompano or something amazing swims up. I'm just trying to avoid shooting things. I would have shot that gray that was just in my face, but again, I avoided so that we can kind of tour the Clipper here. So we're going to go ahead and head forward. There's a sheep's head off to the right there. See all this kind of bleached out coral. The ship is on her port side. There's some school of goggle-eye scad off to the left. The ship is on her port side, her left side, when it was sunk. They did have cutouts on either side of the ship so that when it was sunk, you could swim all the way through the structure. There's a big red snapper back there I'm kind of pointing at behind her, coming up to check us out. There's a good handful of big red snapper we saw on this trip. Red snapper's closed though, so I can't shoot the reds. Rays are definitely on the menu, but those will kind of come after dive 1 here. So there's some fishing line I just got tangled up in. Didn't even see it till I got tangled in it. Kind of letting everybody else know, hey, look out for this line. Kind of going over the top of it now. This is pretty common on this wreck. People fish here all the time. Little school of spades off to the left. Again, we're near the pilot house. There's a sea cucumber here. These are common on the wreck. My daughter didn't know what this was. Just looks like a big lump on the deck, almost like a turd laying there. Those are sea cucumbers. They're pretty common. Almost looks like a caterpillar if it were really big and you kind of flatten it out a little bit. But they're all over the place on the wreck here. There's a pork fish. Kind of common to see those guys off the Texas coast here. Again, we're down by the pilot house. Depth here is at about 100. When we get up on top of the wreck, depth is closer to about 70. We are still headed forward. Again, we're coming up off of the pilot house up onto the starboard side, basically the top of the wreck. And depth here is at about 70. See these cutouts? There used to be windows and whatnot here. These have all been removed. I can't remember what I'm doing here. I believe I'm talking, where I'm using my hand to press my palms and talk. I can't remember what we're saying to each other, but at this point, we're going to go ahead and start moving forward. I'm going to take everybody to the bow. Kind of want my business partner Jeff here to see as we're going to go forward all the way to the tip of the bow. Turn around. There's a gag grouper, that dark-tailed fish down here. Quite a few gag grouper on the wreck. None of them were quite big enough to shoot. A couple of them were pretty close, but not quite. But again, plan is go to the bow, turn around, swim all the way back to the stern so we can kind of get eyes on every bit of the wreck here. Queen angelfish. Pretty common on down here in this area. Tom Tate. I'm telling my daughter through the comms here, Tom Tate. Those do not taste very good, but they were also very common. They're very common on the rigs. They're very common on the wreck during this dive. Bunch of small fish. Some of those are vermilion snapper. There's a spot fin butterfly there on the left that I just passed by. Coming up here, we have a Spanish hogfish, little puffer there. Those little puffers are very common. The Spanish hogfish are very common. Spanish hogfish have a yellow belly. The entire bottom of the fish is yellow. And there are also Cuban hogfish. They look a little bit different. They have red, but underwater you don't see the red. You really just notice that the tail only is yellow. Those will be in the video here in a minute. Depth is 82 feet. We've kind of dipped down onto the tip of the bow. We're turning around, head back. Barracuda comes in out of nowhere. Gets so close I have to poke him. That was kind of weird. That was a pretty good-sized cuda. He's just curious. I poked him, he turned, and he left. He didn't really bother us anymore. Small lionfish here. I'm pointing that out to the other divers with me here. I'm going to try to, he's trying to go up underneath his lip here. I'm going to try to take my gun. I'm trying to scare him out so the other divers can see it, but he went up under the lip, so I kind of just bailed on trying to scare him out at this point. They got a good look at him, though. Here's a Cuban hogfish. See, the tail only was yellow. We'll see those again here in just a minute when we turn around. We'll get a little bit of a better view of those guys. Coming forward, there's a Spanish. The whole bottom of his body was yellow. And hogfish are very, very common here off the Texas coast, on the rigs, on wrecks, things like that. Spanish and Cuban hogfish. Spanish are probably a little more common. They're purple and yellow, whereas the Cubans are red, white, and yellow. But the yellow is the only color you're really going to see down at depths like this. The red is kind of washed out, and you'll notice that here in just a minute. But the yellow really stands out. Again, Spanish have a yellow entire underbelly. There's another gag grouper. Depth is 96 foot. Time remaining 11 minutes. So it's Cuda in the distance. And again, the Cubans, the tail only is yellow on these guys, not the entire bottom, not the entire belly. So again, we hit the bow, we turned around, we're coming back aft again. You start to see some of the structure out on the bow here. These are the Cubans here, so you notice the tail, and they have like a white stripe down the side. The darker top and bottom, it looks kind of brownish there, but that's actually bright, bright red if you had them on the surface in the light. Again, just following this back toward the superstructure. When traveling the length of the ship like this, and I'm traveling pretty far, it can kind of wear you out doing all the kicking. I tend to run the edge of the ship here, and I'm using my hand to grab onto the edge of the ship and pull myself along. It takes way less energy than kicking my feet. The catch there is you have to be very careful. Long spine urchins love to sit right up underneath those lips, and there's been a couple of times on this wreck that where I went to grab a hold of the lip to pull myself and caught some urchin spines in the finger under the lip I was grabbing. So be very wary of that. It's very common for them to be right up against the edges of the metal up underneath. So again, still moving aft here. We're coming to the back of the bow and starting to approach the pilot house area. That's the pilot house there and the walkway around the pilot house. See the cutouts in the ship here. These are the windows that go around the pilot house here. All of the windows have been removed, all the wiring, everything that's just not sheet metal basically has been removed from this wreck. Now, this was planned out before this dive. This isn't a surprise that I'm doing with these other divers. Again, this is all my staff. We're all pro level here. We are all going to kind of drop down into this window very slowly, very gently. That one was a little tighter than I liked, so I kind of move over to this next window, which is a little bit wider. Kind of slowly drop down into this window. I've done this before. I'm going to swim about 20 feet after I drop down in here, about 20 feet to my left. That hallway just opens up, and we're going to kind of drop down in this window, swim down, and swim right out the open end of it about 20 feet away. You'll see that momentarily. There you go. There's the end of it. Just kind of cool to get down into this hallway. We do have a direct access to get up and out of here. I would not penetrate any deeper into the wreck than this. Didn't bring any lights with me. It is kind of dark down inside these openings. You'll see me kind of look down in here a little bit. But because the water is so kind of dark and dirty, it's kind of early in the morning. The sun's not penetrating well. It is quite dark down inside these holes. Can't really see anything. But a lot of space down inside there. It's moving right along. Small fish everywhere. A lot of variety here. Small gray snapper. These here small grays. Lots of different small species. I could name 100 different species, but they're all over this video here. I'll try to name them as they come up best I can. So we've gotten back to the crack here. Basically, this is where we hit the bottom of the downline. We went to the bow, turned around, and came back. So now we're basically back just aft of amidships. From here, we are going to continue aft and head toward the stern. We're just pausing in the crack here, kind of take a look around, letting everybody catch up, asking everybody air supply. Everybody's telling me their air supply. Before we head aft, I want to make sure everybody's good to go before we get that far from the line, have to turn around and come back. So everybody's in good condition here. Take a last look into the crack here. Go ahead and gonna start heading aft. Again, this is the starboard side of the ship that we're looking at here. This flat part, the ship did kind of end up on its side here. What I was indicating with my hand there was we're going to swim down toward the stern, turn around, come back, and then immediately ascend. That's what I was signaling. Again, you can see this loose coral everywhere. The white, real white stuff is kind of bleached out corals. Some of the stuff is alive, some of it's dead. Starting to see lots of gray snapper up here, off down kind of deeper. There's some red snapper actually, quite a few red snapper. That one there's a red. Again, red snapper's closed, can't shoot them. But starting to see more grays. Haven't really seen very many fish going to the bow. There's some spadefish, Atlantic spadefish. Spanish hogfish we just passed. Not seeing much. Again, I just brought the spear gun just in case. I'm starting to think at this point I probably should have just left the spear gun behind. Not really seeing much to shoot at except, you know, a single gray here or there. And the ones I've seen haven't really been all that big so far. Again, continuing aft, there is some structure on the stern here, down to my right. A few sporadic fish here and there. Viz is probably 20-25 foot. It's not fantastic, but it could definitely be worse. Definitely good enough to hunt. Again, I'm trying not to shoot fish on this dive. This is just kind of just taking a look around, exploring the whole ship here. Starting to see a few more grays, getting a little bit of size to them. Continuing to move aft, I'm seeing kind of a larger school here. Starting to see quite a few more grays. These are all pretty good sized grays. I'm actually starting to get excited. Now I'm seeing a huge school, this entire school. Those are all big gray snapper, just kind of everywhere. Again, I don't want to really start shooting yet. These guys are all hanging out right here on the stern. Didn't see any of them forward of here, but as soon as we get near the very back of the stern, just a huge, huge school. There's probably a couple hundred fish in this school here. Really big gray snapper. I'm kind of wanting to start pulling the trigger on these guys, but again, I don't want to do this on dive 1. We're going to go back up. We're kind of getting low on time anyway. I don't have much time to really do much hunting, so we're going to kind of double back, head back to the chain, head up to the boat. Got to do our surface interval, drink a little bit of water, and prep up to do a second dive. Again, we're here in the boat, getting ready for dive 2. Going to roll over the side. Now, we've kind of been down. We've already seen the wreck. My business partner sat this dive out. So myself and Heather here are back in the water. We're going to head down this dive. Now that I've seen all of those large gray snapper on the stern, plan this dive is to head down the line, head straight to the stern, and just start stringing snapper. Want to take some fillets home here. So, gotten to the bottom of the line here. Again, starting to head aft. Already seeing gray snapper. I've already gotten the gun loaded up. Kind of skipped some of that in the video here. That guy gives me a shot, so I'll go ahead and take it. Gray snapper number 1. Right off the bat, he swims down, gets twisted up in a handrail, of course, which they tend to always do. I'm going to hand that off to Heather. She's going to hold that momentarily for me. Of course, this guy's stirring the water up really badly. I'm telling her I'm going to go down, get it untangled. Can't hardly see what's going on here. He's kind of going nuts. A lot of wire and handrail here. I want to try to avoid me getting tangled up in this stuff as well. But got him off, hit my GoPro on the structure as I was coming up, pointed my GoPro kind of upwards. You can no longer see the fish in my hands. So I kind of just cut that video off there. There was a few minutes there where the GoPro didn't hardly film anything at all because it was kind of pointing up at the sky. So I've got that corrected now. Got that first fish strung. Got the gun loaded back up. There's another lionfish back here by the stern. That other one we saw was down near up near the bow. We're back near the stern now, so that is a separate lionfish. Some big red snapper out there in the distance off the wreck. Those guys tend to be pretty skittish. They're not really moving in. Again, there's still some of those grays. I'm starting to encounter those grays. Moving in slowly. And what I'm kind of doing here is I'm moving in, shooting a gray, backing up away from the school to deal with it, string it, get the gun ready, then move back to where the grays are, like I'm doing now. Move back to where the grays are so I'm not spooking them while I'm stringing my fish. Bunch of look downs passing over here. Move in. That guy gives me a shot, so I go ahead and take it. Pop him. That's gray snapper number 2. Now, we don't have a lot of time down here. We've already done one dive. We did a surface interval. We've come back down. I've shot my second fish here. A couple of huge red snapper coming in to see what's going on. Those are really, really big reds. But I'm going to go ahead and get this guy strung pretty quickly. We're going to run out of time. 2 shots doesn't seem like much, but that's pretty much all we're going to get out of this dive at these depths, especially given that it's a repetitive dive. So we've gotten low on air. We've come back to the line at this point. Here's Felix, who's the boat captain. He was on this dive with us. He wasn't really following us around. We were kind of separately doing our own thing here, but we've kind of met back at the line, and we're going to start our ascent here, start heading up the line together. Coming up here, I've got my fish strung. You see me point this is Remora, who's pretty interested in the fish I've got hanging off of me. My first thought when this Remora approached is, where is the huge fish that this Remora was attached to, and where is that fish now, and what kind of fish was it? Given the visibility, I'm kind of waiting for, maybe a large shark or something like that to kind of just come swimming in out of the murk to take a look at us. I'm not afraid of one attacking us, but these Remoras are very commonly attached to some larger species, and given he just came out of the murk out of nowhere, it just makes me feel there's some larger fish nearby that we just can't see that Remora was hanging out with. So he's very interested in the snapper I got on me. I just tore a chunk of meat off, waving it out here. He comes up, kind of takes it from me. That was pretty cool. Got to hand feed that Remora a little chunk of meat. Of course, he's not ready to give up. The fish I've got strung up, hanging off of me, they still have some guts and stuff hanging out. Of course, he's coming trying to get whatever little pieces he can off of it. Pretty tenacious. He doesn't seem too intimidated by us or our size. Just kind of kept hanging around trying to get pieces of my gray snapper to get a little snack. Right, so we're right under the boat. We're at safety stop here again. This Remora just won't really go away. He's really just kind of hanging out with us for quite a while here. Again, he comes up. There's some of the guts hanging out of my gray here. He kind of slurps it up like a piece of spaghetti. He's trying to suck it right out of the fish here. Of course, he kind of finally bails. We're about to surface here. Our 3-minute safety stop timer's up, so we're headed on up. And he's even going to kind of follow us toward the surface here. But once our heads pop out of the water, we're kind of done. We hand the stuff into the boat, do our surface interval, and prep for the next dive. So back in the water again here. Again, we're going to go down, try to shoot what we can. This is going to be, again, just kind of a meat haul dive. I'm going to go right back down the line, turn left, go to the stern, and try to shoot some more of these grays again. Alright, so back down on the wreck again. There's a stingray here. Atlantic stingrays are very common on this wreck. I've dived this wreck many times. I've never been here and not seen a stingray on the wreck. I made that comment before we started these dives. There's the stingray. Right, there he is. Every single dive I've done on this wreck, I've seen stingrays up on top of the wreck at 70 feet. And the bottom is down at 130. So, kind of unusual stingrays being this far up off the bottom. I assume they're just sucking little fish and whatnot off the top of the wreck here. But, again, it's kind of lingering here. There's a lionfish. It's probably that same one from the previous dive. Again, I'm headed aft, so I'm passing some of these same fish I saw before. Trying to ease up. I'm looking for the grays. I don't see as many grays hanging out in the structure as I did before, but they are still around. The more I shoot, the more time we spend down here, the more skittish these guys are going to get. Moving up again, that dark fish here is a gag grouper. They were super common on the wreck. I probably saw at least a dozen of them. But they have to be 22 inches, and they definitely were not that, so they kind of got a pass. There's another big red snapper I'm just kind of pointing the gun at. The few red snapper that I did see had some pretty good size to them. Some pretty big red snapper down here. But again, season's closed, so grays were the only thing really on the menu here. Again, there's that gag, that very dark fish that we had just passed. Moving forward here again, lionfish. Actually, so I guess there were 2 lionfish aft, so that would make 3 on the wreck total. Not really interested in shooting lionfish. I have eaten them. They're okay. A little too much trouble to deal with, if you ask me. Again, just trying to creep back here. See, the water's already kind of cloudy. All these gray snapper that are kind of hanging out back here are getting close to the wreck, and they're kind of stirring it up. A little bit of that's from me shooting fish and them stirring it up. But a lot of this is just from that school of fish. Here I'm pointing out thermocline above and below, and in between it's kind of clear. Just pointing out the way the sediment's laying in the water like that. We have kind of a clear, narrow band where the viz right on top of the wreck is decent. It's maybe 25 foot, whereas down below 100 and up above, maybe 10 feet above the wreck and up, it's maybe 10 to 15 foot viz. But perfect little window of visibility here. So we didn't have anything come up to us at the stern. We turn around, head back. There's a shaft laying here. The Captain Felix his tip came off, so his shaft came out of his cable. He lost it, came to the boat, let me know such. This dive, we went back down. We just now happened upon that shaft and saw it laying there. So we picked that up to take it back to the boat for the captain. He was pretty happy to get that back. These shafts cost a little over $100, so he was happy to get that back. Luckily, it just landed right on top of the wreck, and it was pretty easy to recover there. So I've only gotten 2 gray snapper. We're getting close to the line here. We do need to kind of come back a little bit early. The reason we need to get back a little bit early with a little bit of extra air is the plan is to untie the boat after this dive. We're done. We're the last divers in the water here. So we want to get back to the line with a little extra air. I'm going to take Heather, who is diving with me, up to safety stop depth, get her started on her safety stop. There's a nice gray here. Of course, I'm not going to let him go. Shoot that guy. Got 3rd gray snapper for the trip here. Right, but back to the line. I'm going to get her up to safety stop depth, get her set and started on her safety stop. I am going to go back down to the bottom, unhook the chain from the wreck, and as the boat starts drifting away, I will use the line to go up and do my safety stop and surface. But again, this was gray snapper number 3. These are some decent fish here. Having a little bit of trouble getting him under control. Trying to get him on a short leash, get my fingers up inside those gill rakers, kind of grab his throat. Got him now. Get my knife out, do a quick kill on him so he's not fighting me. Restow my knife. Now I'm kind of digging my stringer out. I'm going to have her hold the shaft here. I kind of need both of my hands, and I don't want to let go of the fish or let go of the shaft and end up kind of losing everything here. So stringer's dangling from my gun, so I just got the stringer off the gun. This is just a simple short wire stringer that I kind of fabbed up myself. Before I take him off the gun shaft, I'm going to take that stringer, poke that through his eyeballs here. It's going to tee on the backside, clip it to itself till it makes a little loop, clip him off to me. Then I'm going to go ahead and start removing the shaft from this fish. I'll get him clipped off, then I have my hands free to go ahead and get my shaft back into my gun here. This is pretty much it for us. We're not going to have any time to go searching for more grays. There are no more in the area. They're all back near the stern. The stern's a little too far for us to head back to. So at this point, we're just kind of done. We're headed toward the rope, the chain itself, our anchored line. Again, we're coming up on the crack here. So I know we're almost there. 76 foot is what my computer said. Time remaining 6 minutes of bottom time before we go into deco. Again, we kind of want to go up a little early anyway. We got plenty of air left. I want to be able to go up, come back down, get her unhooked, and have enough air left to make my safety stop when I make my ascent here. So kind of last look around here, looking at the crack in the ship. And we're right at the line. Last look around and just kind of ending the dive here. Checking my time. I've got 6 minutes remaining. Still got plenty of air. I'm going to take my gun, clip it off. I'm kind of done with the gun at this point. Kind of ended the dive. Can't remember what I was pointing at there. I'll get prepped up, get my gun clipped off. Getting everything ready to go. Double checking her air supply and signaling for her to start heading up, right? So again, we're going to head up the line. We're still tied to the wreck here. Felix, we've already talked before this dive. He expects me to untie the boat. The captain expects me to untie the boat before we come up. We're not going to surface and then go back down and untie. We're going to try to do this all in one go. That way we don't have to come back down here. So again, coming up, all the way up to safety stop depth, which would be 15 to 20 feet. You'll notice when we're getting shallower, it's getting a little bit brighter here. I'm going to hand that shaft off to her so I can use both hands to get the boat untied when I get back down to the bottom here. Right, so I'm letting her know, do your 3-minute safety stop. After that, go up to the boat. Got her kind of squared away. this point, I'm going to turn around. I'm going to head back down to the bottom pretty quickly. As I get down here again, I'm going to just kind of, when the waves kind of give a little bit of slack on the line, I kind of unclip it from itself, bring it around, and she's free. Now I'm just going to hold on to that line, kind of use it to go up, do my safety stop surface, and that kind of concludes this dive and this trip. I appreciate you guys watching the video and all my videos, and hope to see you guys on the next one.